Hey, thank you for spending some time with me today. Time is our greatest equalizer because we all have the same amount of time. So, what you choose to do with your time defines who you are. So, I know you have an interest in animals. So, again, thank you for spending that time with me. So, I wanted to dedicate this talk to pretty much any animal who ever taught me something along the way, because everything I know is because these sentient beings help me to dig deep and understand the truth. And so, this is my Sophie, the oily English bulldog, and she has to wear the boss hat. These animals are voluntarily spending time, their precious time, with us, helping us find our way through this spiritual journey we have on earth. So, we're going to talk about the benefits of aromatherapy for pets, just a little bit about me. In 1997, I started speaking on the safe and effective use of aromatherapy for animals, started clinical studies in my practice, and I've basically been able to travel and consult worldwide on the safe and effective use of aromatherapy. And I became recognized as the pioneering veterinarian in veterinary medical aromatherapy. And here's just a little bit about me. You can pause if you want to look at that further. What qualifies me to speak? And here's our disclosure. Again, you can pause it if you want. Basically, I'm not talking about treating, curing, diagnosing, or preventing any disease or illness. This is for educational purposes only. And the suggestions here are for use with biologically active essential oils as appropriately labeled for their use. So, again, I'm going to educate you a little bit on what would be deemed a biologically active essential oil. So, what is aromatherapy? It's definitely talked about quite a bit now, and there's a kind of a lot of hype behind it. So we want to get under that. But first, it is the use of essential oils, which are the subtle, volatile liquids distilled from shrubs, flowers, trees, roots, bushes, and seeds. This is not flower essences, which is more of a homeopathic prep for the use of flowers. They're very complex, usually consisting of hundreds of different chemical compounds within one distillation. They are also not vegetable oils or essential fatty acids. That's something different. And we can find evidence of their use dating back as far as 5,000 years. And again, this would be written down under rituals because rituals were the medicine of 5,000 years ago. And we've changed into medicine. But if you want to look up the history, also look up the magical or ritual use of aromatherapy. So this is definitely a little primer for my new book, as you saw on the first page, the ABCs of Aromatherapy for Animals. And I'm putting down the guidelines for safe and effective use, but it's really a booklet. We're going to give you some guidelines on technique or guidelines just overall for essential oils. We touch a little bit on the biologically active essential oil. And then we have an essential oil. And I basically go through the alphabet. And under that essential oil, we're going to talk about the magical or esoteric use, the chemical use, and the psycho-emotional use. And I'll even touch on a little bit of what is showing up in my clinical studies after this long. So, biologically active essential oil is going to adhere to very stringent current good manufacturing practices, or the CGMP, and strict standards of quality control, or QC. And again, we outline this in some of my books. I give presentations on this a little bit more. But the bottom line is this: if the oil is not biologically active, meaning influencing the biological system, our pet, that we want to use the essential oil on, it's not going to deliver the kind of reports that I'm giving in our little booklet. So the type of oil we use is imperative for safe and effective use, and the technique we use is imperative for safe and effective use. So A is for aromatherapy ability. So we have to understand our ability. And have you done your due diligence in investigating the company? Ability is, have you asked the right person for advice? And ability is, did you dig deep into the knowledge available to you? So knowing your own ability to use these active ingredients is very important. So who are you getting your knowledge from? Are you digging deeper into that knowledge? And have you asked the right questions? So know your ability. Under A is Angelica. And you'll note here that I put the botanical name and the portion from which we distilled the oil. It's very, very important that that is supplied on your bottle. If it is not, you could have Angelica, but it might be leaf oil. Or you could have a different species of Angelica. And sometimes what is not even included on a bottle is, where was that plant raised? How was it raised? How was it distilled? How was it bottled? And how much testing was done to verify that it is truly Angelica root oil? So Angelica, according to research, is the most antimicrobial of all the essential oils. And it is also one of the most photosensitive. So a side effect of using this essential oil is that if you go out in the sun and expose the area where you put this particular essential oil, your skin could change color. So we don't want to be putting this on the back of our animals and then letting them out in the sun. We want to put a t-shirt on them. It's going to strengthen inner organs, especially the digestive tract and spleen. It's got a very calming effect, and it will help release pent-up feelings. So this is especially for animals that are very well trained, and so they can stuff their natural reflexes, but it's building up in their body, and we want to be able to release that. From a magical standpoint, or the esoteric standpoint, this was considered a Holy Spirit oil. It's the oil of the angels, and so strong that it was believed to be of divine origin. And again, back in 4,000 years ago, that could be because they didn't understand antimicrobial, but we were getting great effects from it. It helped protect them from the plague, and again, it released pent-up negative feelings. And my studies show that it really sedates the nervous system and decreases gastrointestinal inflammation, and is even an anticoagulant. And so this truly is the oil of the angels, and I do love being able to use it. So B is for biology. So biology does equal biologically active essential oils. Biological systems recognize biological systems. That's why when you go out into nature, there is a camaraderie that can occur with nature that we don't get in our urbanized society. In fact, I feel this is why there's such a huge increase in pet ownership, because we've urbanized, we're moving ourselves away from our connection with the biological system called the earth, and animals are fulfilling that for us. So you want to ask, is the oil you are about to use qualified to give you the results you are expecting? So do your research into what I mean by biologically active essential oils. And you can contact me. We can get you some of the information about that. But basil, one of my favorite essential oils, and I say basil's for muscles and strains. Um, from a magical standpoint, they used to use basil to release possession from the head and the chest. And so, again, this could be somebody that they used that terminology 4,000 years ago, but possibly had some muscle strains or even spasms. From an emotional standpoint, I use this for alertness, assertiveness, positivity, and focus. Really open the conscious mind and prevent mental fatigue. And so animals that are competing, basil can be an incredibly good essential oil because not only does it help the physical, but it really opens the mind to be awake and ready and focused on the task at hand. And again, I have found it to be very uplifting and awakening. It's even a stimulant. So I can take animals that are a little bit foggy in the brain and use basil for them. It's antispasmodic. It's a decongestant, not just to the respiratory system, but also to the circulatory system and get everything kind of moving. So I really love using basil, especially before competition. Okay, so C is for chemistry. And chemistry determines the biochemical effect of a living system. The biological effect is a combination of the chemistry plus the quantum physics. And we all know this. If something's alive, they have chemistry, they have matter, which is what chemistry is, the study of matter. I teach it at a medical school. And they have the physics, the animating force to that matter, the energy. And biology is a marriage of both chemistry and energy, matter and energy. So this determines our biochemical effect, which is what most research is done on the different chemical constituents of our essential oils. And if you want to understand how to test for this natural chemistry and or determine if there's adulteration, then this is what you would be looking at, because we're not there yet with the biological activity. But there has to be an aliveness to this essential oil to really be functional. And we're getting there. There are some testing that will at least determine if someone has actually adulterated and synthesized an essential oil to the point where it will trip up all testing except for a few that actually will show that it's a natural product versus a synthetic product. Most companies aren't able to do that testing, so you want to be asking about that. In my Dig Deep Method book, I have the whole list of the questions you should ask. And what the chemistry can do will determine the effects and possible side effects. So most of the research that is done on essential oils will be done on the individual chemical constituents, because currently that's our research method. So when you're looking up for your actual essential oil, often you're not going to, well, you're definitely not going to find it under the common name. You might find it under the botanical name, and you may find it more under what's considered the active ingredients of that particular essential oil. Having said that, the effects of an essential oil have nothing to do with just its main chemical constituents. It's actually the synergy of those hundreds of compounds found in that product. And we don't have good testing at this point to really determine how that essential oil consistently can perform what we see in practice. So we want to really look at all the different chemistry. And in the course from the Veterinary Medical Aromatherapy Association, we cover all of these things in great detail. In fact, this little the ABCs of essential oils for pets really stems from a little primer of that intensive course. That's over 24 hours of time, talk time, and presentation materials that you do at home via a classroom, online classroom. But when we're looking at chemistry, we want to consider the chemotypes and where the plant was grown, under what stressors was the plant grown, is it organic versus not organic, because all of that changes the chemistry. The other thing is to remember that the plant created a synergistic mix of chemistry that creates the effects. It is not that there's just one or two chemicals within that mixture that are the main ingredient or seem to be in the largest amounts that create the effect. So we want to look for research that actually is not a standardized or a synthetic product that they're using in research to try to adjust for variability. We have to start using research that allows for that chemical synergy. So on to cypress, one of my favorite oils, and I'll probably keep saying that. Cypress is for circulation, circulating whatever we need to circulate, bringing circulation in or cleaning it up and removing that stagnant circulation, getting it moving. And so its psycho-emotional effect is stinking thinking. So when you're stuck and you have that stinking thinking, that fatalistic thinking, cypress will start to circulate your thinking, circulate what you're stuck on. It's also incredible for easing losses and for wise direction. So I'll use this when pets are in grief. It also is a very good decongestion for fat and circulation, so the lymphatic system, the adipose system, and the circulatory system, and our urinary system. And it can repel insects. So another really good essential oil to use as a common practice for wellness. So D is for dilution. So how much you dilute is determined by the species and the issues at hand. So if I'm using it for first aid, I don't dilute. But if I'm going to use it for chronic disease, I am going to dilute. What you dilute with can determine how effective that essential oil is, or even can cause side effects. So when I was studying, I got to the carrier oils, or the things that we could dilute with, and I was like, oh my good Lord, it's just as variable. So you do need to know what you're diluting with. If your essential oil is put into a diluent that's got a lot of impurities in it, those impurities in your diluent will show up as a side effect, and it was never the essential oil. So how you use the oil is just as important as what oil you use. It's always about getting educated. So dill is for digestion. And it helps us not only digest from a physical standpoint, but it helps us digest from a conscious standpoint. So, purifying thoughts, nourishment, resentment, weakness of the heart, weakness of the spirit. Dill is for digesting, for opening up to possibilities. I use it in bronchitis because, again, it's digesting the phlegm, liver and gallbladder deficiencies, gas, sluggish digestion. It will actually stimulate the pancreas, and in Chinese medicine, it's a good stimulator for lactation. E is for effects. So I put eucalyptus and then species. There are different types, and those different types of eucalyptus will equal different effects. So, what is your effects? What are we looking for? What are your expectations of this protocol? What should you expect? And not only that, but notice the effects and note them down. This is where I started the clinical studies, is I just wanted to see what it did because I didn't have anybody to study from. And I just kept noting down, this is the effect. And pretty soon I had, these are all the effects, and I'm getting them consistently. Usually I wouldn't talk about an essential oil till I had 200 to 500 cases that I've used it in. I also want to know, are there side effects? And I also need to determine, are the side effects because of the essential oil used or another cause? Did you actually dig deep enough to know the real cause of the effects? So often we don't dig deep enough. And again, my whole book, the Dig Deep Method, came out of looking at a social media sensationalization that said essential oils kill cats. So I looked into it. And what was pathetic is the cat did not die. So, but it was the headline that drew people in. So on to eucalyptus. Eucalyptus is for opening orifices and what I call the fascial planes. So it kind of allows energy to flow through the biological system again. It's stimulating, balancing, it creates boundaries and trust. So you can think about what kind of pets you would use that in. It can be mucolytic and an expectorant, and it can even be anti-inflammatory, especially to the respiratory tract. And I use this as part of what I call my help oils for first aid. And so the help oils are helichrysum, eucalyptus, lavender, and peppermint. So F is for fun. And fun is so important. Why else are we doing this? So if your pet is running away from that essential oil, guess what? It's the wrong oil because it's no longer fun. Always give them an escape route. The number one cause of side effects, especially in animals, when it was even a good quality essential oil, is a bad technique where we diffuse that essential oil at a really high level and we don't let our animals get away from it. They know when they're done, so give them an escape route. Give them a way to go outside. Give them a window that's cracked. Give them another room where the essential oils are not being diffused. This has to be fun for them. Fennel. Fennel is for fever. Fennel is for becoming resolute, having courage, and becoming enlightened. And fennel is again another one that can stimulate lactation. It can actually stimulate estrogen, our digestion, and is a cardiotonic. So some of these spice essential oils are really good to have be part of are protocols on an ongoing basis. If you're going to mix this into their food, know the right technique. If you're going to put this into the water, that is the wrong technique. You may be able to put it into water for yourself. However, with animals, they're not going to shake the bottle first. They'll go to take a sip and they'll burn their mouth. So this needs to be put into a fatty food for better absorption, or it needs to be put into a capsule. And the label has to say that it's safe for ingestion. If the label does not say safe for ingestion, or an essential oil that is labeled for taking in internally, do not give it to yourself or your animals. G is for giving. So, are you giving your pet enough time to respond? Are you giving your pet a choice? So sometimes you can just put out a bunch of essential oils and let your pet pick the one that they're most attracted to. In the course, we teach self-selection. Are you giving and sharing the essential oils with others? And are you teaching them safe and effective methods? And are you giving yourself the gift of essential oils? I have many clients that are happy to do things for their pets and forget about themselves. But grapefruit is one of those great giving oils. It's very good at decongesting the adipose tissue or fat tissue and creating drainage within the lymphatic system. And from a psycho-emotional standpoint, it's uplifting, liberating, and it is rewarding. And there was some research done that showed that application can help with radiation poisoning. I use it mostly for decongesting the skin, helping to detox the skin and the lymphatic system in my pets. H is for hope and also helichrysum. So remember, this is part of our help oils. And I think helichrysum is best used for anything. I basically say if all else fails, use helichrysum. But it has to be the appropriate helichrysum. One time I bought a helichrysum that said it was raised in Washington State, and it does not have the chemical constituents of a helichrysum raised in the appropriate location under the appropriate conditions. I mean, we're talking latitude and longitude, weather. It needs to be raised organically. If it's not raised organically, it's not stressed. So why would it produce the oils? From the standpoint of hope, you want to think, are you maintaining a possibility thinking? Are you hopeful? Do you believe? Because these essential oils are biological systems. And just like our pets, they pick up on our thoughts and beliefs and even the emotions of the home. So what is your emotion, our thoughts, and our belief within the home? Or even when you're putting them on your pet, what are you saying? Helichrysum is about gentleness and caring and bonding. So I love helichrysum for stimulating that human-animal bond, that communication. I just want to make sure that you're communicating not stress and worry and stinking thinking, but that you're communicating hope and love. It is very good in a first aid effect, that it has the ability to stop bleeding, but it also has the ability to stop clotting. So we call it a platelet adaptogenic product. It's very anesthetic topically, so it helps with the pain. It's mucolytic, it's an expectorant, it stimulates the liver. It's my go-to if I have a toxic liver. It actually will decrease scarring. It decreases spasms. It helps balance the blood pressure. Just overall, if all else fails, use Helichrysum italicum. P is for pharmacology. And we've got peppermint, one of those help oils. So many essential oils have been thoroughly tested in a pharmacological model. In fact, in the French medical field, they have done all of the pharmacodynamics and the pharmacokinetics on many of the single oils. Blends are usually not tested. So you can research. You're going to look for the chemical constituents rather than the essential oil. And you would want to be looking within those chemical research in the methods for which oil and whether or not they used a standardized or a non-standardized essential oil. And most of those studies are done on animals, but may be reported to infer human activity. So don't always look for what this does in an animal. Just look for this study, and then you may actually find that that study was done on maybe rats, sometimes cats, sometimes dogs, etc., etc. And then you can glean what it might be doing for our pets. I use peppermint for pain. I use peppermint when there's an injury. It's like a methylatum. And from a psycho-emotional standpoint, it's very clarifying. It awakens the system. It's very stimulating. And so I like to use peppermint with my athletic animals before and after as a rub down because I know it's going to open up the mind, not just the muscles, and then it will also help to condition the muscle skeletal system to what they're about to be doing in competition. So Q is for quantum physics. And then there wasn't an essential oil that started with a Q, so I found one with a Q in the name. MQV, also known as Nioli, is a Melaleuca. So remember, if someone says, oh, I'm using Melaleuca, that's just a species. You need the full botanical name in order to know what it might do. This particular Melaleuca is a much safer essential oil. It's not as what we call hot, and it's very antimicrobial. And in fact, it was used magically for protection and influencing boundaries. I like it as first choice for allergies and respiratory issues. I like it with animals where their immune system isn't quite as strong or robust. And it's very good to use with radiation issues and hair loss. So I look at this as creating boundaries. And just remember that not all essential oils are harmful. Not all Melaleuca is harmful. We have to look at the different essential oils on a different basis, which is their biological activity. Quantum biology is that new study of looking at the quantum nature of living organisms. We've been looking at the biochemical nature of living organisms for years. Now we're looking at that energetic design. And a biologically active essential oil will operate at that level. So remember, not all oils are created equal. Not all techniques are created equal. And R is for reactions. So remember, no two biological systems are the same. So your pet is unique. Watch for reactions and then adjust or course correct according to their reaction. But make sure you're noting those effects so you can duplicate the reaction again when it's positive, or you can course correct it. And know who to contact for your education and how to course correct. It does not mean that the essential oil was at cause. We've got to dig deeper. Price differences are often due to poor manufacturing processes. And you want to know, is your company transparent or not? And remember, social media is not truth. So dig deep enough. The oil here is rose, and rose is love. And this is a steam distilled, not an absolute or an extracted rose oil. And so you don't want to just buy something that says rose oil on it. You want to make sure that it was a steam distilled Rosa Damascene flower oil. And it takes a lot of flower petals to make 1 ml of rose oil. So that's where the price comes in, as long as somebody's producing it correctly. Roses love and beauty. It balances the mind and the heart. It is one of the highest vibrations of all essential oils. And so for me, it balances the psycho-emotional aspect of any biological system we use it with. This should be part of a daily application for us and our pets. So I know I haven't covered the whole alphabet, but there wouldn't have been enough time today. So T is for techniques, and the oil you choose will determine safety and effectiveness, but the technique you use will also determine safety and effectiveness. Remember, cats are not dogs, and dogs are not horses, and none of them are humans. So do not assume to know unless you have spent some time learning. I don't have enough time to spend that with you. So know the correct techniques. Get yourself educated. Tangerine. So tangerine is about uprising, projecting, speaking, finding your voice. It's actually about protecting our heart and creating that boundary and projecting who we are. Not from a negative standpoint, but that relieving that timidness. Tangerine wakes that up. And I have found tangerine to be very effective in fearful pets who have trouble sitting safely and comfortably creating boundaries for themselves, especially in multiple pet households. Sometimes this is enough just to create balance. And lastly, V is for veterinarian. So I wanted to include this because the organization, Veterinary Medical Aromatherapy Association, I founded in 2016, and it's basically a partnership with knowledgeable veterinarians and animal enthusiasts so we can collect even more data on the safe and effective use of essential oils. And there are knowledgeable veterinarians that are part of this organization that can support you in your education and in your course correcting. And the VMAA also offers a course, which the basic course I kept open to everybody so that you know what you're doing. So go to vmaa.vet and get yourself familiar with the course and the options from this association. This is how we fund the association, and hopefully, as it grows, we'll be able to fund research also. And then V is for vetiver. And vetiver is one of my favorite oils for helping us ground and become rooted to the here and now. And I use this a lot in my um, animals that are having problems finding their footing, having problems staying here on this planet. This also will help them center, find their vision, and it's extremely protective. You're very protected when you're rooted into the ground and that earth is taking care of you. And our animals don't spend enough time walking on actual earth. When we've urbanized, our animals are on top of rocks, they're on sidewalks, they're on asphalt, fake grass, and vetiver just helps them really connect with the earth energy which they need. It's very stimulating to the circulatory system. It helps with a very weak immune system, which often is, I don't want to be here. So we can help to ground them back into that. So we already talked a little bit about the Veterinary Medical Aromatherapy Association. Um, Again, familiarize yourself with it. There's why you should join, courses, educational materials, but most importantly, there's veterinarians with experience you can access. And this is key because we're often going to our veterinarian and asking for advice, but they have not educated themselves on this area. And the only thing they can say is no, don't use it. And that's unfortunate because they're not educated in the modality. They're just trying to protect your pet. So know the veterinarian always has your pet's best interest at heart when they're giving you answers, but ask the right questions of the right person. So overall, make sure you're choosing the right essential oil, the right technique, you're asking the right people the right questions. And then I just am plugging my educational materials. Basically, you can order my books at safeforanimals.com. You can see here that I have 5 books available and, of course, the course. And basically, we've put out a book a year over the last 5 years. We've got first aid, and then the chemical-free pet, how to basically make their environment and living conditions as chemical-free as possible. An educational book on what pets should be eating evolutionarily. And then I've already talked about my dig deep method, digging deep into the research into a social media plant, understanding how to ask the right questions. And then lastly, the book that I used for this presentation, the ABCs of Aromatherapy for Animals. I want to thank you for spending time with me today. I hope that I gave you some information that you can use immediately, and I hope I stimulated you into wanting to ask more questions and wanting to educate yourself further. Please contact me if you do have any questions, and thank you so much for spending your time, which is our most valuable commodity, with me today.